In this video, we will discuss about the beautiful patterns we see in the night sky that we call constellations or asterisms, what interesting meaningful insights do they provide us when we map out their 3D position, figuring out their distance, what more insights do we get. So, let us dive in. So, many of you would be familiar with the concept of celestial sphere. So, this is how celestial sphere would appear if all stars were at same distance and observer was at the center. We will see some of the stars pattern. These are few of the bright stars in the night sky. We immediately see some of the constellation patterns, and some of the stars are more distributed towards one region than the others, and we use them for navigation and other purposes for sky observation. However, we know we can figure out at what distance each star is, and if we use that their position, and when we allow these to move in 3D, we realize a lot of these star patterns that were initially observable now do not hold any meaning, right? Because when we observe them from Earth, what we see is an 2D projection of their positioning in the night sky, and we lose the information in depth. We do not realize what their depth is by single observation, and some of the star patterns might be misleading, right. So, does that mean that celestial sphere concept that we study is wrong? This is a somewhat common question that students ask, that why we study celestial sphere when stars are not at fixed distance. So, celestial sphere is a simplified concept that we use to help in navigation, to study sky observation. But although it is an inaccurate concept, but it helps us analyze and draw conclusion based on few sky observation. Measuring their 3D position is also important, because what happens when we have the distance information, as we have already discussed in the previous videos, that it tells us about the true luminosity and the brightness of the star, which helps us reveal more about underlying physics inside the star, and also these distribution would help us understand the universe better. Now, if we try to look at Orion constellation, for example, and we map out each of the bright stars distances, we immediately see that what we assume as a hunter or human like figure loses its meaning, because some of the stars are 500, 600 ish light years away, but then there are some stars which are 1300, 2000 light years. Now, if we draw this in 3D, it no longer holds meaningful human like figure. Why? Because it will be highly distorted, and no human or no hunter will have such a shape. You would assume that the waist will be roughly in the same line, in the same distance, all shoulder like stars are in the same orientation, but now when we map this, it immediately loses its information, and moreover these shape would only be meaningful if you observe it from Earth. Even if you move to nearby stars or some Voyager like missions, you will start to see some distortion in this idea already. Let us say move our observation to Sirius. Now, immediately we can figure out that observers from the star Sirius would see a different sky. First of all, they will not see Canis Major as we see from Earth. Also, they will see additional stars in the sky. One would probably be Earth, and more other nearby stars which are otherwise faint for Earth. So, all these patterns that we see, they happen to form some shapes. Civilization across the globe throughout our history have tried to construct some meaningful idea about these shapes. Originally, they were probably used to remember the sky easily, to help them navigate. So, for example, to remember which part of the sky rises and which part of the sky sets, so amateur astronomers often use a story that because there was a feud between Orion the hunter and Scorpius, so whenever one of them rises, the other one sets. It helps us navigate the sky more easily, realize based on your location and time which part of the sky you are seeing, and it helps in many of the conceptual calculations. However, these stories when transferred to many generations lost its meaning, and people start to think that these have some meaningful impact in our life. And as we already saw, since this cannot be a human like or hunter like figure, their importance in our life could not have a significant impact. Right. So let's look at the Orion constellation once again. We are looking from a vantage point much farther from Earth as a center. So you would see Orion in a different orientation, but we could see Orion over here, and right now it looks familiar to us, to a hunter-like figure. So right now we are at a vantage point far from Earth, and we are looking at the celestial sphere. We can almost recognize Orion-like figure over here, but when all these stars are now moved towards their true 3D position, we see that orientation that we originally identified no longer holds any meaning, and in fact some of the stars went outside the frame as they were so far apart. And if you see from this vantage point, you will notice that these stars have a very different shape, very different pattern, and if you actually observe sky from this vantage point, the constellation patterns that we see from the Earth will not be seen from those. However, if you move back to Earth and we look at this star pattern again with all the stars in their original 3D position, we again see Orion as it's originally intended to see, because from one single observation on Earth, it's very difficult to understand and estimate their distances. We lose information on the distance, and we only see the 2D projection in the sky, and that is what we call as Orion constellation or Orion asterism. So these are some patterns that we draw by joining some nearby bright stars, and they are fun to watch, but they have meaning only when you have them in stories for navigation and helping yourself to remember them. But if you really think through and look at their 3D positioning, all these patterns are just based on your perspective. So to summarize, the 2D beautiful star patterns that we see in the night sky by joining some of the brightest nearby stars are merely based on observers' perception, and if you think about it, they don't make any meaningful sense because they don't have that shape in reality if you join with their 3D position. And one would also realize that if we see two stars which are very nearby in sky, they not necessarily be physically nearby in space. And here we conclude. If you have any questions, any doubts, please let us know in the comments, and we will be happy to know your comments on some of the other topics you would like to hear more about. Thank you.